rights, I want to believe that when we have that in the law, that the courts will have a much harder time getting around the regulatory law, which is, I believe, what they do now. I mean, what I've watched in my growing up is the slow erosion of all those wonderful regulatory laws that all had good intentions and proper intentions, but that erosion, little by little, by the regulated community, by the agency capture, that erosion has undermined what those laws were intended to do. So, the Keeling curve, the impaired waters lists. One more thing. I want to acknowledge Professor Houck. I have had one successful Clean Water Act case, enforcement case. It was great. It was glorious. I can't tell you how stunning the result was. But in the process, one of the reasons why we were so successful was that we caught the water authority falsifying data. They had been doing it for 6 years, and the regulatory agency that I used to work for had never found it. It was stunning to me because it was Permit Inspection 101. I don't know what the agency is doing. They're not doing their job. This authority had been falsifying data for 6 years. But that's what it took for us to be successful in a Clean Water Act case. So the Keeling curve, the impaired waters lists, the Superfund lists, what I see over my lifetime is a visible increase in air pollution. I can see it. I live on the top of the Blue Ridge. And when I drive down the mountain, I've been driving down the mountain for 25 years, I can see the increase in air pollution. Each and all of those measures are evidence that the regulatory system is failing nature. And nature, I believe, has the right. So I hope we make progress this weekend. Thank you.
Thank you, Tammy. The next panelist is Ryan Talbot. Born and raised in the Allegheny National Forest in northwestern Pennsylvania, Ryan holds a bachelor's degree in environmental biology from Clarion University, a Master of Studies in Environmental Law from Vermont Law School, and is a graduate of Lewis and Clark Law School. He currently serves as Executive Director of the Allegheny Defense Project, where he works to protect public lands from industrial extraction and to stop the construction of new natural gas pipelines. Ryan also currently serves as a member of the Board of Directors of the Community Environmental Legal Defense Fund. Join me in welcoming Ryan Talbot.
Thanks, Thomas. A couple of cases that I wanted to talk about from the Allegheny National Forest, and kind of springboarding off of the slide that Richard showed earlier. You can see that first slide where you saw all the old growth forests that were still in Pennsylvania. And by 1920, that was gone. And it was shortly after that, 1923, that the Allegheny National Forest was established. And it was established because of that clear cutting. And the federal government went in and said, basically the state has failed to protect, state and private landowners have failed to protect this land. And because of all that logging that had occurred, Pittsburgh was flooding substantially, and there were massive wildfires across the landscape from all of the tree limbs that were left. And so in 1923, the federal government started acquiring the land that is now the Allegheny National Forest. But nearly a century later, the same corporate interests that had gone through and just wiped out that forest still basically control what goes on in that national forest. And it's not, they're not going through and clear cutting the entire forest like back then, but they're still in control and doing clear cutting on a massive scale. And the oil and gas industry also has almost complete ownership of that national forest. The first oil and gas well drilled in the United States was just outside the boundary of the Allegheny National Forest, and kind of propelled the oil and gas industry in the world. So the first case I wanted to talk about is this timber sale case. At the time, I think it was the largest timber sale in the eastern United States. And am I too far away? Oh. I'm out of time. So the East Side timber sale was at the time, I think it was the largest timber sale in the eastern United States, and it was primarily almost all clear cutting. And after the clear cutting of the old growth forest, the tree species that came in was black cherry. And historically, black cherry was a very minor component of the forest overstory. But after the clear cutting era, it came in like it's a weed species, and it's also very valuable. So the Forest Service started saying, well, we're going to manage this forest for black cherry. And they even have a black cherry Bible, this whole manual that they have that tells you how they're going to grow trees straighter, taller, and faster. And so black cherry has gone from less than 1% of the forest before the clear cutting era to about 30% of the forest in less than a century. And in some of the understories, it's closer to 50% of the forest. So you're seeing a complete forest conversion that's going on, and it's solely for the value of that single tree species. And you walk out in multiple parts of the Allegheny, and it's just seas of black cherry, no forest diversity. And so the Forest Service wanted to log 8,000 acres, basically for black cherry. We sued. Initially, we won. It's a bizarre procedural history, but initially we won. It was a magistrate judge, and then she rescinded her order and issued a second order saying we lost. But the issue we had sued on was under the National Forest Management Act that said that the Forest Service cannot select a logging method primarily based on getting the greatest dollar return. And we had a clear case. The evidence was really strong that the Forest Service is managing this forest because of the value of black cherry. That's it. And we had initially won on that claim. And then 6 months goes by and the district judge never rules on the magistrate's report. And then the magistrate pulls her order, issues a second order saying, we lost. And basically she said that because Congress didn't define the word primarily in the statute, she had to defer to the Forest Service's interpretation. And there we were, like, just right up against judicial deference to agency interpretations of federal law. And just like that, our win turned into a loss. We appealed to the Third Circuit, and they upheld the district judge order. And that was my first case that I was deeply involved in, and I thought, wow, and that was even before law school jaded me. And so I was just astonished that had happened. And so that leads into the next case where deference played a different role, or the lack of deference. I mentioned earlier that the Allegheny was sort of like the birthplace of the oil and gas industry. And there are thousands upon thousands of active oil and gas wells, tens of thousands at a minimum of inactive abandoned wells. And then we started having the fracking boom on top of that around 2005-06. And because of the way that the Forest Service acquired the land, they didn't acquire the mineral rights under the land back in the 20s. So private individuals, industry still owns the mineral rights under 93% of the forest. And it's the most lopsided example in the national forest system. So when I say the oil and gas industry owns that national forest, they really do. And so, but regardless, we said, well, the Forest Service still has authority to protect the surface. And you have to comply with NEPA because you have discretion to say this road can't be built here, so close to a stream. So we sued